Hello, hello. Happy Monday. Joining a little bit late because it's first day of summer vacation around here in my household and things are just here, there, everywhere. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a great weekend. Happy June. For those that are on summer vacation like my family is, congratulations. Welcome. You did it. If you are one of the humans who still has a couple weeks to go, you can do it. You're doing awesome. And you're going to enjoy those extra weeks in August and September when our kids are back in school. But all to say, hope you're doing well. Excited to join in, jump in, chat a little bit about this. Like, how do we set up our graphs for storytelling with our data? And it's just a reminder, lots of people say data storytelling, but then that feels like, to me, like we put the emphasis on the data is doing the storytelling, when really we are doing the storytelling with the data. The same way we write a story, we put all those words together into a book to write the story. So yes, we're reading the words and that communicates the story, but we have to construct the words in that way. We have to construct the data in different ways to tell the story that we want to tell. If we put together our words in one way, it results in Cat in the Hat. If we put together our words in another way, it can result in Harry Potter, another big thing around my household at the moment. If we put words together in a whole different way, it results in the Odyssey. So who the person is who's deciding the story and constructing the story is really important when it comes to our prose. It's the same when we're working with our data as well, because we can tell multiple stories from any one data set. And so we are telling the story with our data, the way we tell stories with our words when it's coming to prose. So data storytelling is a big deal. It's a big deal for our students as they are thinking about how to share a story. It's also a really big deal for us as adults, as like we're constantly presented with data and it's the end of the year and we're doing a lot of things with assessment data and communicating to our teachers and our our parents and other teachers and our admin and to our students of how things have been going throughout the year. So we might be looking at like how grades have gone over the year and different things like that. And so how do we think about how to put together a visualization like that, where we're looking at test scores or things over this past year for an individual student, for all of the seventh graders in social studies, different things like that? How do we think about putting those together so that we can tell a story about said seventh grader in social studies, or about all of our seventh graders in social studies this year, or about our seventh graders this year versus last year, if we had this new project or initiative that maybe we were doing this school year during the school year, and we want to compare those two. So even though you might not think of yourself as a storyteller with data, you in fact are. Each time we're making our visualizations, we are storytelling with those data when it comes to communicating out, which is why it's really important for our students to gain the skill themselves, to gain practice telling stories with their data, from their data, also so that they can have that practice of the skill themselves as the story creator, but also as they are consuming stories others have put together from data, things like that. This is one of these like double-edged swords where it's great. We get to like build the skill themselves for them as creators, but also for them as readers as they are going through. So then that begs the question of like, well, but so how do we do this? What are some things that we can do to make those stories better and different pieces like that? And I will say one of the biggest things that we hear and that we come across and that we see rubrics around are basically getting at the aesthetics of the design of our graph. So we're thinking about the color combinations and potentially wanting to avoid red-green colorblind. Super important. Guess what? Yellow-blue is also another kind of colorblind that we want to be mindful of as we're putting together our constructions. And we hear things like, the font size and are the axes labeled and things like that. These are all really, really important. But That comes after a few other steps. And in fact, in this blog post that I'm sort of referencing, and I'll put in the link, so we talk through like, what are some of those steps? Like, what is a step-by-step guide to creating a graph or a chart or a map or a plot that you can use to tell your story from the data? And those aesthetic pieces, the visual pieces, super important, super key. There's in fact like a whole wall of books that you cannot see that I am looking at, that is in my bookshelf here in my office, that is all dedicated to that part, the aesthetics part, because that part is really important for storytelling with data broadly and for professionals who are data visualizers, and this is what they do all the day. But it is only so good as what we put into it, as we identify our story. And what that story is helps inform how we want to construct that visualization. So step one is, what is your purpose? What are you even trying to say or tell in this story that you're putting together? Creating space and opportunities for our students to think about this. Yes, they are building their understanding of how to read and explore data, and that is really important. But we also need to give them opportunities to think about, okay, so I've looked at the data, I've explored the data. What kind of story could I tell from the data? So thinking about what is your purpose, then thinking about making sure our data are organized in such a way that we can easily create a visualization from it. Typically for our students, they've already done this a bit. We've already done a bit of the data exploration when they get into putting together their visualizations. But then this is a key one, choosing the right tool for what it is that you want to say or tell or things like that. So a tool that is really helpful for collecting the data, say a tally sheet or a data table, might not be the right tool for exploring the data and figure out what's going on in the data and being able to easily sort of drag and drop and twist and change and tweak and edit what we're doing. And that may or may not be the same tool that we want to use to actually, we have our story. We have a sense of what we want to say. Let's pull all the pieces together to pull it together in a way that we can share it out to tell our story. So the right tool for the moment can be really key and really helpful. And while I would love to say there is one that does it all, there's not, in fact, one that does it all for our students in K-12 across our subject areas. So we need to be sort of mindful of like, what are some of those tools? Some are better than other. We've attached a couple here, in our opinion, of ways that kind of help with that collection, exploration, and being able to put on some of these design elements to our graph. We've hit it, step 4, the design elements to our graphs. And then, just like with writing, review and revise. So just like our students are doing with their writing, if you're doing writing workshop or anything like that, right? We're not a one and done. Like, we got to sort of think and pause and reflect and all of those different pieces. So this is, don't mean to make you dizzy, there's a whole heck of a lot here in this sort of a guide for educators to think about mastering graph creation, all as it relates to storytelling with data. What can it mean? How can we help our students with it? It connects out to one of our absolute most favorite free resources, the Graph Tape Matrix. This is our most used and accessed resource that we have. And so I'll make sure to put links to both of those so that you can get like a few more of those tips and examples. But just thinking like, if you're stepping into helping your students storytell with data, or at this moment, if you're trying to communicate out to parents, or if you're trying to communicate up to your admin, or if you're trying to communicate to the students or get the students to communicate, we're all storytelling with our data every single time we are putting together our data visualizations. We're representing it and we're presenting it out as okay, here's the data we have. We are storytelling. The trick is recognizing that so we can follow some of these steps to be even better at it as we go through. So hope that helps. Hope there's some tips in here in the longer blog post, which has a lot more that I did not cover, but just wanted to sort of point towards, I'm pointing this direction because that's where my external monitor is and where I have it up, like pointing towards a resource that's chock-a-buck full of lots of tips and tricks that hopefully can help, hopefully that you can use this year and or in preparation for next year. Until next week, happy June. I hope you enjoy your week. I hope it's sunny and easy and all of the things. Stay curious, keep exploring your data,